Okay, 2, 4, 6, 9 lines from the bottom, 8 lines from the bottom. Omalo Amar Abaye, Omalo Eirechod Ochalto Chelev, Valo Shosek. Now, the halacha is by chatos. Person eats chelev inadvertently, and then he realizes he ate chelev. He has to bring a chatos. Tshuva is not sufficient. Okay, because eating chelev has the liability of koris. When the Torah speaks about being aware that you violated inadvertently, it says, "Oh, hoda elav chatoso." It became known to him. His sin became known to him. Now, how did it become known to him? He realized himself. What about if 2 witnesses will come and say, by the way, you ate the fat that you ate was not kosher fat, it was chelev. Is that called hoda elav chatoso? It became known to him, or we say, no, that was hodu acherim. Others informed him that he did the wrong thing. So it's a machlokes Rabbanan and Reb Meir, whether he's liable for a chatos, whether he has to bring the chatos. Here? Eidim say the fat that you ate was chelev. So you believe it's fact. But according to the Chachamim, you will not bring a chatos. Because it says, hoda elov chatoso. It has to be known to you, not that others informed you. Right? It had to be through your own initiative you came upon this fact. But if it came upon because you're just accepting it, because witnesses say so, you really don't know. You're taking their word. You're relying on what they said, but do you know whether they ate chelev or not? Torah says you have to believe witnesses. That's not called hoda elav. Rameir says no, that is called hoda elav. Why? Because if the Torah says that 2 witnesses are able to put a person to death, you mean to say the Torah when it says hoda elav doesn't mean you believe them to bring about an obligation to bring a chatos. It's not close to remain the chachamim. But let's even according to the chachamim, what about if the Eirechod comes and says the meat you ate, the fat you ate was chelev, and you should have been more careful. And when he listens to what he says, he realizes what the single witness is saying is correct. So he's not relying on the single witness. It's only the single witness brought him to the awareness that because of his carelessness, that's why he ate the chelev. Nobody argues. You're obligated to bring the chatos. Because it's through your own awareness that you came upon. I'll give you an example. The Gemara says in Ksubis, the Torah says testimony is al pi shnai beidim yokum dover. Right? It has to be, testimony has to be oral testimony. What about written testimony? Is not accepted. Because it says al pi shnai beidim yokum dover. What about if a person witnesses something and he records it? He records it in a diary, and now he's called upon to testify 20 years later. And he has no recollection of the event. But he knows he recorded the event. And when he reads the event in his recording, in the diary, now he remembers what he had seen 20 years ago. He's qualified to testify. Because what he had read only reminded him of what originally he knew. What about even after he reads it, he has no recollection whatsoever. And he only he has a very vague recollection, but he only remembers the details because what he wrote in his diary, he recorded in his diary. It's not valid testimony. Because what's the basis for the accuracy of the testimony? It's not his memory when originally he witnessed it, but rather it's based on what? On his recording. It's not valid. So if it just reminds him of what he had seen, but then once he's read it, now he remembers what he had witnessed, that's valid testimony. But if it's based upon the recording, solely the recording, then it's not valid. No, this first one, this testimony, unrelated to chelev. Wait a second. We're not talking about apples and oranges and mangoes. We're talking about let's keep it to itself.
What about recording on a recorder? Where you recorded 20 years ago something, is that considered valid for?
What, you can play the recording in court?
Yes.
The person died 60 years ago, and you have a recording of his voice. Could the person testify? Well, it's his voice. The person has been here for 60 years. Could you have him go up for Hallel? Dam V'Riyamo to play the recording? Okay, so it's interesting. It's the same thing. Testimony means you need the witness to testify. Okay?
Because if you're still alive.
But again, it has to be al pi, it has to be based on his memory. You don't remember. What difference does it make if you're recording your diary or you're listening to your voice? It's a recording, right? It's a written recording or it's an oral recording. It's the same recording. It's nothing. You have to remember it yourself. So when the Torah says, "Oh, hodei lev chatoso," you have to become aware. What does aware mean? Aware means it's not you're accepting the fact because witnesses said the fact, but rather they inform you, and based on what they inform you, now you realize what they're saying is correct. So really, it's your own understanding that you did the wrong thing inadvertently. Okay, that's what Abayi is speaking about, and that's the way Tosfos explains it. Omer Abayi, because we're speaking about a concept known as shtika kodo. Silence is admission. When you're silent, it's admission. That's called shtika kodo. Silence is hodo, is admission. Now, there's a halacha, the Chofetz Chaim speaks, in the Chofetz Chaim speaking the laws of Lashon Hara. Chofetz Chaim, in his introduction, he asks a question, because he cites many sources of the seriousness and all the extreme negative consequences speaking Lashon Hara. Very serious. He says, so why are people so careless? People eat kosher. But Lashon Hara, it's as if the restriction, the Isser, doesn't exist. So he gives many reasons. He says, a person's unlearned, it's understood. You know, what's the retort? But it's the truth, right? That doesn't justify it. What about the Talmud Chacham? So he goes through many things with Talmud Chacham. You know, the man is a Rasha, the man is a Bal Machlokas, the man is not honest. He justifies many reasons. So the Chofetz Chaim goes to show it's not so simple. First, how do you know he's a Rasha? And how do you know this? Maybe he gives many shows, and that's what the whole Sefer is about, to show when do you have a right to pass judgment, when don't you have a right to pass judgment on a person's classification. That's the Chofetz Chaim. But he writes over there, there's one case very interesting. What about if somebody said to the other person, you stole from so-and-so, and the person remained silent? So, and it was in a public setting. I mean, usually a man comes to defend himself. The man remained silent. That confirms he's truly a thief. And he's a man who normally doesn't remain silent. Do you have a right now to draw from that the man did steal? Chofetz Chaim shows you have no right. It's not a basis. Not a basis. Because he shows that there are times where a person, even at times where he reacts and will not tolerate it, that a person sometimes feels it's futile because it's already being said in a way where whatever his response will be ignored. Therefore, he feels he might as well just remain silent now. So therefore, silence is not necessarily an indication of admission to the accusation. Therefore, we have no right to speak about him negatively, even though he remains silent. Meaning, you don't say shtika kodo. Here was shtika kodo. And the Echad comes and says, ochalta chelev. And Tosfos says, what are we speaking about? He said, the meat that you ate, if you remember, there were two pieces, and you weren't careful, and you ate the chelev rather than the kosher fat. That's the way he expressed it. And the man remained silent. So because the man remained silent, it's not, he's accepting the testimony of an Eid Echad. Eid Echad Nembi Surah means a person says this meat is kosher. Right? You didn't know whether it's kosher or not. You're not permitted to eat it. Eid Echad says it's kosher. You're permitted to eat it. But what's the basis? Because Torah says Eid Echad Nembi Surah, that a single witness is believed. So there it's not based upon any prior knowledge. Or you have any indication that it is kosher, it's not kosher. It's solely based upon the testimony of the single witness. That's Eid Echad Nembi Surah. In our situation, if to obligate one to bring a chatos, it has to be your own realization that you did the wrong thing. So because he presented in a way where you should have known and he remained silent, that's the indication that he's come to the realization that he made the mistake. So, it has nothing to do with benefit. Because he came to the realization is his own realization, that's what's sufficient to what? To bring about the abolition of the chat. That's called ohode elif chatoso. That's Abayi. And the person remains silent. Nemon. The echod is believed, meaning it's sufficient to bring about an obligation, man bring a chatos. Tosfos says, what about if he says, Eini Yodea? Even after he gave him this introduction, he should have been more careful. There were two pieces, and this and that, and he says, I'm not sure. Even though the Eid Echad said, you definitely ate chelev, that's not a hode ilav chatoso. He has to come to this inadvertently through his own realization. Because he's saying clearly, I'm not sure. He says, I'm not sure, he's not sure. That's not a basis to bring a chatos. Well, it depends. If actually he has that question, the question is, what does I'm not sure means? I don't think so. Or if he's not sure, I'll give you an example. We paskin la halacha. There's an argument in Krisus. Okay, when the Torah says you bring an Osham Toloi, a person goes and he's not sure if he ate chelev or he ate shuman, kosher fat or not kosher fat. Not kosher with chelev, you have to bring a chatos. It's koris. Not sure. And let's say there was only one piece, and he's not sure whether it was chelev or was shuman. Does he bring the chatos? It's a machlokus. It's a machlokus in the Gemara. Are we speaking where you have two pieces, one chelev and one kosher fat, one non-kosher fat? He ate one of the two. So because it's called ischazi yisura, there was definitely issa there. And there is a very strong possibility he ate the non-kosher. That's the reason why you have to bring an Osham Toloi. But let's say you only have a single suffix. You only have one piece. And it's question, was it chelev or shuman? He doesn't know. One opinion is one doesn't bring an Osham Toloi. There has to be a basis, meaning the Isser existed. The question is, did I partake of the Isser? Okay, we rule alocha, you need chaticha achas b'shtei chatichos. Meaning the Isser is there, it's just the question, did I partake of the Isser? That's when you bring an Osham Toloi. Osham Toloi is to protect the person that even if you did the Isser, it's to protect you until you come to realization that you did do the Isser. Inadvertently, then you'll bring the chatos. You can't bring the chatos unless you know you definitely did the Isser, inadvertently. Here he's not sure. But if you did it, you're going to be punished. So what holds the punishment in abeyance to protect you? That's the Osham Toloi. It's a guilt offering, which is a questionable guilt offering. That's for the sake of protection. Once you realize, so that's the whole discussion. When will you come to realization? If you have a piece left over, then we could maybe make a determination that the piece you ate either was permitted or not permitted. But if it's one piece and there's nothing left of what you ate, so then there's nothing to talk about. In that situation, you will not bring an Osham Toloi. So it's chaticha achas mishtei chatichas, okay? No, but again, when the single witness tells you, is your doubt the same doubt and you're relying on him? Or the doubt allowed you to come to a realization which clarified something which you didn't know until the single witness came? Be the same thing. Right? If you're solely relying on the single witness, you would not bring a chatos. You had to come to the realization because of what he informed you. Okay. Correct. And if a person needs kapara, so then you can be punished if you need kapara. Okay. Omer Abaye, so we said, Vitana Tuna. And we have a Mishnah that supports what Abaye says. That an Eirechod, that Shtikodot, that even a single witness testifies he ate chelev, and the person remains silent, he has to bring a chatos. Omado Eirechod, the Mishnah increases. Achalto chelev. V'alo Omer lo achalti. He counters the single witness. He says, you ate chelev? He said, I did not eat chelev. Potur. He's exempt from the chatos. So what's the inference? Why is he potur? Because he's countering the single witness. Taimo doma lo. Ho ishtik mehemen. But if he'd remain silent, he would. But the question is, but the Torah says, oh hodei lo chatoso. He has to have that realization himself. So where's the realization? So we see here, shtika, the silence, is admission that he comes to the realization. But again, it's only as Tosas explained. It's speaking where the witness presented it in a way where he comes to the realization that what he had done was he ate the chelev. No doubt. In his mind, there's no doubt. Bamidbar Abaye. Omalo eirechod nitnu tarasecho. Single witness says, you have food which was not contaminated, which was supervised that it was not contaminated. Eirechod says, your tyros became contaminated. V'lo shosek. and the person remains silent. Nemon. Okay, this is a little bit difficult. We have a principle, and we discussed this. Something that is chazik yisura. You have, let's say, untied grain, untied produce. When the echod comes and says, the owner tied it, is a single witness believed. Echod, then bisurin, tevel. Tevel is, you're not permitted to eat tevel. Single witness says, the owner was mafresh. He can't be mafresh. He can't tithe it, because unless you're an owner or a shliach, you were appointed as an agent of the owner, you can't tithe. Okay? But he testifies, so-and-so tithed his produce, his grain. Is he believed? Samar says he's not believed. Why? That since the tevel has a cheskes iser, meaning its presumed status is it's not permitted, so until you know it's tithed, it's not tithed. Neid echad is not believed to testify going against the chazokah. Okay? What about if the owner would say, I tithed it? So he's also Eid Echad Ben Bisurim. Why is he believed? Because it's biyodo. Because it's biyodo lafresh. Because since he's the owner of the grain of the produce, since he could bring about what he's saying, because at this moment he could tithe it, therefore he's believed. That's the difference between the owner and a third party. So now we have a problem over here. An Eid Echad says to him, Nitmu tarasecho. But he says, your tyrus became tomeg, and he what? And he remained silent. So what is he saying? Again, he's not saying he contaminated it. Let's say we're speaking about he came to a realization on his own. Again, the same thing. Your tyrus became tomeg. If the tyros have a cheskes tyro, there's a presumed status and not contaminated. And the Echad is not believed. Right? He's not believed. Because again, it's going against the chazok. Chazok doesn't mean isser necessarily. It could be even heter. The thing had a status, a presumed status, it was not contaminated. You want to alter that status. You're not believed to alter the status. So why, when he says to the individual, your tyrus became tomei, why is he believed? Again, because the person who would be believed, to say my tyrus are tomei, because it's biyodo, because it's his, he can do whatever he wants with it. Therefore, he's believing the person by telling him that it became contaminated. So again, it's shtika kodo. His silence is an admission to what he's saying. If he would counter him, he's not believed. Why isn't he believed? Because again, you're not believed again because you want to alter the status. It has a cheskes taro. Presumed status is not contaminated. You're not believed. Okay? A third party would be what? If the owner remained silent? No, he's not permitted. Not permitted. Of contaminated. Okay? Well, taris doesn't necessarily mean it's not permitted. I mean, if a person is tummy, what does he eat? There were people you're permitted to eat non-consecrated food, which is contaminated. Chulin, which is tummy, you're permitted to eat. However, there were people who, we had this in Chulin, the only food they ate, even non-consecrated, was al-taris HaKodesh. It was only in a pure state. This was considered offense. They lived their life only within context of purity. But let's say they'd eat tummy. What did they eat? Anything they would eat is tummy. So they would reserve that food for their periods when they became contaminated. That's when it was. So over here, because the Gemara will discuss this later, because it seems to be Abayi is going to state his position in 3 applications, and it seems to be totally redundant. You know, shtika godo, A, B, C. I've already presented the principle. Silence is admission. So what do you keep reapplying it in 3 different contexts? Evidently, you may say it in one, but you won't say it in the other. And even if you say the first 2, maybe you won't say it in the third. And that's what the Gemara is going to explain in a moment. Why Abayi has to apply it in 3 different contexts. Again, I don't. Yeah, that's.
The man says your food became
He would say milk fell onto the meat.
yes, something like that. Says your food became
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. No different. Except there, it's more extreme. Because there, the man. No, see, because the Gemara is going to make a differentiation. What's the chiddush of when I say your tyrus became tomei? Could be the man. It didn't respond because it's totally irrelevant. Because in his own contaminated state, he has to eat anyway. So therefore, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But if you say something is not kosher means until now it's permitted, it's never permitted. It's not going to be permitted to me. Then he would have. So then that would be redundant. That he would have. So it's obvious. The silence is admission, but this is not so simple. The silence, being silent is admission here. Okay, that's why he doesn't give the case of it became non-kosher. Rather, it became contaminated. Okay, the Gemara will explain this. Yeah. No. Chalos taken means it was tevel. You're not permitted to eat bread unless it was tithed. That's not kosher. So the baker is biyodo, right?
Going back to chatos, can you just bring the chatos into
Voluntarily. No, you can't. Unless you're definitely obligated to bring a sin offering, you can't bring a sin offering.
What happens if you do?
It's called chulin azora. It's like a non-consecrated animal. Could you bring a non-consecrated animal as a korban? You can't consecrate a chatos unless you're obligated to bring a chatos. Okay? This question is the Rice's Rabbanon. Betana tuna. We have a Mishnah to support this. Eirechot omed nitmu. V'alo omed lo nitmu. Right? And Eirechot says your tyrus became contaminated, and he responds, the owner of says, lo nitmu. They did not become contaminated. Potur. Right? It's potur. It says, time adom lo. It's only because he countered the witness. Ha'ishtik, with the inferences, but if you remain silent. Nemon. So we have another Mishnah supporting the second statement of Vai. Third statement. Now, it's interesting. An animal that somebody committed bestiality with the animal. And there were two witnesses who come and testify somebody committed bestiality with this animal. What's the halach of the animal? Has to be killed. You're not permitted to benefit from it. Has to be put to death. What about if an eid echad, a single witness says, somebody committed bestiality with the animal, he's not believed. What about to bring it as a korban? Is Gzeres HaKosov, although he's not believed, to affect its status, its monetary status, within the context of chulin, but as a korban it cannot be brought. Okay? So we'll see. He's believed enough to affect its status that it's disqualified from a korban. Well, we'll see in a moment. But again, he's altering its status. So we'll see. It's speaking, a single witness comes and says to the owner of the animal, somebody committed bestiality with the animal. And the man remained silent. So what's that status? So we're going to quote a Mishnah, that the only time he's not believed is if he counters the testimony of that witness. But if he remains silent, it says the animal was disqualified. The animal cannot be brought as a korban. So again, that's the third. There's nothing to do with selling. No. That's not what we're talking about. No, we're not talking about that. If it already was a korban, that animal has to be destroyed. Here we're talking about it's a behemoth chulin to be consecrated for. Right, that's what we're talking about. Omer Abayi, Omer lo eid echad shorchon nirva. Somebody committed bestiality with your animal, and he remained silent. Nemon, he's believed. Betana Tuna, we have a Mishnah that supports this. Shenevda bo aveiro. It says if an animal was nevda bo aveiro, shehimis al pi eid echad, or it killed someone, a single witness testified that the animal killed a person, or al pi abalim, or the person himself, the owner of the animal says, one of these, either somebody committed bestiality with it, or it killed someone. Hai al pi eid echad heichidami. When it says al pi eid echad, a single witness, what is the either kamodi bailim, if the owner openly admitted, said it's true, I know al pi abalim, said that's al pi abalim, right? That's the case we have. El lav, what are we speaking about? The shosik. The eid echad says somebody committed bestiality with your animal, and after the single witness says that, he remains silent. So we say silence is admission. Therefore, the animal is disqualified from a korban. That's correct. Utsrichas. Now the question: what is Abayi? Abayi stated the principle of silence is admission to be applied in three different situations. I mean, you already said, if silence is admission, so you already stated, what do you have to give three applications of the same principle? Utsricha. Each application has to be stated. Why? If I'd only have the first case, that you ate chulin, you ate chaylev. Ilav the kimle ben nafsheg. Because factually, if he wouldn't be sure within himself that what the single witness is saying is correct, David chulin ba'azora, right? The ochal that he ate, chulin ba'azora, lo havi maisi. There's a violation, either Torah violation or rabbinic violation, not permitted to bring a korban. How do you bring the korban? You know, there's a Tosis in Bamidbar. There's a question that if a person says, I ate chaylev inadvertently, he's believed. So the question is, one would say, you know, the most Meisamatzma Rosha. I mean, a person is not believed to what? A person wants to bring an animal to, he consecrates an animal, Chatas wants to bring to the base of Mikveh. You know something, we can't accept it. Because we can't believe that you ate the chaylev, because even that, it's an isser. So Tosa says, because there's an Anand Tzaddik would say with a surety, if in fact he didn't eat the chaylev, he's not going to bring chulin lazora. So because I have that Anand Tzaddik, I could say with certainty that he would not bring chulin lazora. Therefore, when he's saying he ate chaylev inadvertently, he did eat chaylev inadvertently, because otherwise he's doing an isser. So that's what the Gemara is saying over here. In the first case, why is silence admission clear? Because what's going to be the consequence? He's going to bring the chatos, right? He's going to bring it. But if actually the Torah says, "Oho de'ilav chatoso," that it has to be only through your own realization. How's he bringing the chatos? It's chulin ba'azora. So therefore, the silence is clearly an indication that he's acknowledging what the man is saying, that it's his realization. Wait, we'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment. Because we're going to differentiate between the cases. Yes, we have to stop here.